Gwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Gwan, are you there? What's good? And welcome to episode 19 of the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast. This is actually the first episode of our What a Gwan series, where we're going to be discussing Black mental health awareness. I'm your host, Glenn, aka G Ransom, and for today's discussion, we've invited psychologist and professor Dr. Cynthia Northington Purdy to join our panel as a guest to speak on the overall importance of and stigmas towards mental health awareness within the Black community, as well as how to identify when someone may be combating or experiencing a mental illness, tips for getting help, and staying well. Tune in as we aim to demystify the significance, prevalence, and impact of mental health awareness and issues related to mental wellness within the Black and African American communities, as well as reveal our personal experiences and opinions on the matter. But before we delve any further, if you aren't already a follower or would like to learn more about the show, definitely check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at JJC Podcast, where you can stay up to date on our latest offerings, announcements, and join the JJC community. Now, if you know, sorry about that. If you know anything about this podcast, you know we're more lit than aunties at an open bar. And I attribute that honor to my brothers in bond and OGs of the JJC panel, starting with, first, Mr. Naira and our originator, D Black.
What up, man? You and this Naira never gonna stop.
It's all good. Just embrace it. Nigeria's on the map. I'm telling you. Fellow co-host, angriest man on the panel, Chunky.
I like cookies.
Oh my gosh, no sound warning.
Awesome.
All right, our social media plug, Francis, aka The Franchise.
What it do? It's good.
Next up, we have half Boweekla, half amazing, our creative, Dre P.
Hello.
And of course, last but not least, myself, G Ransom, G_Ransom on Instagram. Check it out. And now I'd like to introduce our guest to the panel, psychologist and professor, Dr. Cynthia Northington Purdy. I think we'll just call you Dr. Cynthia for short.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just go ahead and just inform our listeners about yourself and your professional background, title, where you're from, located, current practice.
I am a psychologist. I like to narrow it down now to lifespan developmental psychologist. I study human behavior. I've been a professor at William Patterson University of New Jersey for a long time. That's all I'll say, a long time. And I've had a private practice. I've done life coaching, organizational management kinds of things with people. And just freelance work. Now I'd like to train teachers to be motivated because they get burnt out really quickly. And I did most of that before COVID, and they were burnt out then. So I can only imagine.
Understood. And I understand that, I'm also a fellow pioneer myself, 08 alumni, as we kind of talked about earlier. So shout out to that as well. Big
All right.
And I also understand that you're quite a Renaissance woman, if I can say so myself. You have a podcast which is dedicated to teaching teachers how to become better teachers.
Yes, I've been on a bit of a sabbatical since the coronavirus broke out, and so has my podcast. But I'm back in the classroom in September, and I'm going to be reviving the podcast. There are 52 episodes for people who are educators and who are thinking about being educators. Just some suggestions, advice. I try to talk people off the ledge. That's that sort of thing for educators. But I'll be starting it back in September. It is called Your Teaching Career. It is available everywhere: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I browsed the catalog and I saw you had some discussions or topics centered around, dealing with COVID and the digital teaching and getting back into the classroom. So my girlfriend is actually a teacher, so I think that'll definitely come in handy to her
Oh,
and
yeah.
even to
Share
some of
that.
our listeners as well.
Definitely.
And I understand you also have a merchant site on Etsy, so your creativity doesn't stop there. You're actually
Yes,
artist of
I
the sort.
do. And I'm really excited about that. This is the next phase of my life. Don't feel obligated to stay in the same profession all your life. I mean, I'm
100%.
just saying, and as an old woman, I'm just saying it's really, it has brought me to life. I have an Etsy page. I paint. I paint, therefore I am. I really do.
Nice.
And I enjoy it. I
That's
use
awesome.
acrylics and watercolors. Everything on Etsy is for sale. It's Northington Purdy LLC on Etsy. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's therapy. Art is therapy. Tell your wife, art is therapy. It will really calm. No, it's meditative.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely browse the catalog there as well. And I might have to make that purchase myself. I'm definitely gonna have to take that jump and
Ooh.
get into the art world. So how would you describe your art? Like if you were to use one word to describe it, if you could, how would you describe your art for our listeners?
Cathartic.
Mm.
It really is. It's emotional. Things that I can't say to people, I can somehow express on the canvas. So I have a lot of abstract stuff. I have some, not enough, but I have some African American pieces. They sell really quickly. That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, flowers. I'm a Star Trek fan, so I have a lot of space stuff.
Hey,
Nice.
shout out to
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Awesome.
Yes.
So
So yeah, I'm excited about what you see behind me is one of my backgrounds.
Well, that's awesome.
So I'm really excited about it. Don't think that if you're in a job and if you don't like it, don't think that that's the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be. You've got everybody has a lot to express. You just have to find it and bring it out.
That is a token to take from this episode if there's any other. I'll sign up to that bandwagon all the way. And I guess if there's any other projects in the works for you, Dr. Cynthia, that you'd like to let our listeners know about, or anything they can stay tuned in for?
Watch the Etsy site. That's primarily what I'm using for my artwork. And in September, tune into Your Teaching Career, the podcast, because I'll be teaching then, and I'll have a lot more to say about it once I'm back in it.
Awesome,
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess specifically in regards to your professional background, you mentioned that you were a psychologist. Now, I guess for some of our listeners, could you explain like maybe what a psychologist does and maybe, what's the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? And just so they have a better understanding.
Right. Okay. A psychologist is a person who goes to school for, the study and practice of psychology. There's a lot of different branches of psychology now that there weren't when I was coming into it. You can be, if you want to make a lot of money, industrial psychology, business and people management. That's really where the money is. And or you can be a clinical psychologist and work with schizophrenics.
Mhm.
And people in mental institutions. I did a 6-month internship at a mental hospital facility and decided that wasn't for me. And you can be a professor. You can teach. You can. It's open. It's really open. I've chosen academia because I like getting a paycheck every other week. I don't like. I don't like the uncertainty of working for myself.
Understood.
That's real.
So I'm one of those people. I like the idea that, if I get sick, I can go to the hospital and I'll have insurance. And I mean, they're practical reasons. But I love the freelance work that, I'm able to do after coronavirus, before coronavirus, when I could go into the schools and work with teachers and work with students. And they need it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Going back to the field, especially.
A psychiatrist is a person who goes to medical school and then they spend an extra year learning counseling and therapeutic techniques, and they can prescribe medication. So if you go to a psychiatrist, they might offer you, and you're depressed, they might offer you an antidepressant. They're not their training is not so much in counseling and listening carefully. I mean, they do, of course, but their training is more in medicine, you know, and the psychiatric effects of using medicine.
Understood. So if you're undergoing like a more debilitating mental condition, you would probably want to see like a psychiatrist on that end. But however, a psychologist can also provide therapy, but they also deal with research as well.
Therapy, resources, time, a listening ear. I'm discovering more and more that people are just lonely. You know, that there's nobody, people, I don't know, that they don't trust to tell their innermost feelings to share. And so people seek out counseling and they seek out therapy. Yeah.
Understood. Well, thank you for that breakdown. And I definitely dropped a lot of tokens there as well. And I'm pretty sure you're going to chime in on a couple more as we get through the actual discussion. So we'll definitely move on to the next phase. And thank you for all your insight. So before we jump into the topic, we'd like to dedicate this episode's Rep Your Business, Creative, and/or Industry Pro to Support Black Colleges. Support Black Colleges is an organization and clothing, apparel, and accessory line whose sole mission is to uplift, inspire, and encourage others to support HBCUs. Founded in 2012 by two Howard University students who saw the need to spread awareness about the school that changed their lives, each year the SBC team employs over 70 college ambassadors and gives thousands of dollars away in scholarships. Definitely one of the most reasonably priced brands today to provide clothing and accessories for men, women, and children. And I definitely regret missing out on their Juneteenth shirt. They have probably one of the most dopest Juneteenth ads or t-shirts available on the clothing store, which is completely sold out now. So definitely check them out. You can show your love and support for HBCUs and higher learning today by supporting Support Black Colleges store at http://supportblackcolleges.org or checking them out on Instagram, Facebook at Support Black Colleges. So definitely a big up yourself to SBC. Now, without further ado, let's chop, and we're going to get into our topic. And we just wanted to start off the episode with a slight disclaimer. And we understand that mental health, wellness, and awareness is indiscriminate to race, nationality, culture, and gender. And by no means are we disregarding the struggles of others. However, the focus and mission of today's discussion is to hone in on a body of people who have for years been programmed and taught to suffer in silence, disregard their voices, and identify with their struggles. So we're hoping this discussion will not only help those within Black, African American, or minority communities that may be in need of or currently receiving help, but also assist those who brave the field daily, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and the alike, to provide the best care possible to those within communities of color and helping Black people and African Americans. So we actually broke this down into 3 segments. The first being identifying that you need help. And we're gonna go around the panel and as well as ask Dr. Cynthia pretty much a myriad of questions. And the first thing I'd like to identify or get the panel's assistance with identifying is, what is the overall definition of mental health? Because I think like it's a buzzword that you tend to hear a lot lately, especially, you know, coming from COVID, mental health has been that thing. And I know particularly within, you know, the Black community, you know, there's a stigma towards it. And, you know, part of this discussion is to help combat the stigma. So I'd like to start with Dr. Cynthia. What is your definition of mental health? You know, is there more than one type? Well, how would you classify it?
The definition of mental health varies from pretty much any population that you put yourself in. For example, I grew up Pentecostal, all right? And mental health meant that you were happy in Jesus, that that's if you prayed all the time and you read your Bible and you felt good, you felt good. And if you weren't doing that, let's say you were depressed and you go to the church and you say, you know, I'm just depressed, I'm so sad, you need Jesus, you know? And so years ago, when I left for college and I said, I'm going to study psychology. And they said, what do you need that for? All you need to do is pray and get in the work. So, you know, in the culture of my Black upbringing, that was a big deal. You know, that people, what they saw seeing a psychologist is, you know, you're wasting your time and your money when all you need to do is pray. All you need to do is talk to a clergy person. That was part of part of my reality growing up. And I got tired of defending it, actually. Why I'm studying faith. Why it goes against the Bible. No, it doesn't. You know what I mean? So that mental health is being happy with yourself in whatever state that you're in. So what constitutes mental health for me will not be the same as what constitutes mental health for you. So for me, being mentally healthy for me would be not having any responsibilities for several days. Plenty of food and nice warm weather and yeah, everybody, it means something different. However, in social scenarios, there are behaviors that are considered not mentally healthy. And we all kind of agree on those. And that's what frames the definition of mental health. How you behave in social situations. You can't go out in public with no clothes on. You can't, there's certain things that you just, that nobody's going to put up with. So, those are behaviors that we usually refer to as mental health.
Understood. I guess I'll just refer it back to the panel as well, if any other insights as far as your personal take on what mental health was. Because I know for me personally, that did not exist. Like, having been raised in immigrant household, settling here in America, we were never taught, hey, this is what a mental health illness or episode looks like. We were never, it's the same thing, praise God, God will save you, no worries, do what you're supposed to do and you'll be fine. So mental health was never a thing. I may have had a cousin or a relative that was experiencing something, but they did a lot to kind of subdue it, like make it, not apparent, make sure it didn't exist to us. It's like kind of like, well, don't talk to them because something's wrong with them. But it was never an explanation as far as what it was. So unfortunately, until recently, I never understood the concept of mental health. So it's kind of difficult to help form a definition of it.
It's personal.
Yeah. No, it's kind of funny you guys kind of like mentioned the spiritual aspect of mental health, because growing up in church and even having African parents, they associate mental illness with like dark power, you experiencing something like spiritual from the bad side, and don't really and pretty much associate mental health with like pray to God if you need anything, rely solely on God, read your Bible on a daily basis and stuff like that. So for me too, I kind of grew up with the same experience as well. And it seems that especially in the Black community, we all have the same experience, right? And I think that's kind of what makes it super taboo in our community as well, because of that notion that we all kind of grew up with from generations, right? And we're still kind of dealing with that today in our community.
Yeah, facts. So I guess I'll jump.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, D.
No, I think so. When it comes to, I think I'm just going to, probably echoing what my cousin said, but yeah, even today, even as we kind of have this, conversation, we're talking about mental health, you still feel like, I don't know, I still feel some kind of way. It's like, is this something that's really kind of meant for, growing up African and not something that we actually kind of addressed on a regular basis, even to the point where, I'm talking to my dad about it, talking to my sisters about it, even like I'm talking to my girl about it. And it's like, it just feels very like, it still feels like it's taboo, like the fact that we're even having this, podcast about it just feels like, are we really talking about something that's taboo when it really shouldn't be, because everybody, deals with different mental afflictions. I don't know. It's just very interesting.
I think it's different. So I have a different background. Like I saw a therapist when I was 12 and I had a life circumstance that happened to me. So it was very comforting to be able to express my emotions. And I think as a Black community, yes, we kind of put it to the side because we used to doing it for years, but I never saw it as taboo. I saw it as a necessity in order to get through life. So the way I define mental health would be your adjustments to adverse situations that happen to you. So when something happens to you, you can go either one or two ways. Either you can accept what happens to you and move forward and take it as a lesson learned, or you can try to be defiant towards it and try to just harbor those emotions, which eventually come out at some point. But the more you talk about how you feel and what you think, the more you can acknowledge what you're going through. The more you can acknowledge what you're going through, the better you become as an individual and to help other people. So I've told people, like, yeah, it makes sense to go see a therapist. It makes sense to go talk to someone about how you feel and what you think. Just like being physically fit, you have to be mentally fit. And that takes a lot of stretching, that takes a lot of techniques and work to go through. And if I don't know how to do that, then I need to talk to someone to teach me how to do those things. Reading books about understanding who I am as an individual was super helpful, because like, oh, these are my hot buttons. So when someone pushes that button, I can acknowledge it and respond appropriately. But if I don't know what the deep root of what I'm going through is, then I'll always have negative reactions and not be able to get down to the bottom of it in order to act appropriately. But like acting appropriately to me is kind of subjective. And like you said, Doctor, it's based off the community that you're in.
Yeah.
So mental health is something that's super important, especially now going through COVID. People had to look inward and try to figure themselves out. And when you have a lot of time to yourself, you end up being your worst enemy, and you find out things about yourself that you don't like, but you don't know how to do.
Or your best friend.
True. Yeah.
Or your spouse.
So yeah, so
Really
that would
creative
be,
under pressure.
that would be my input on mental health, and I think it's something super important that I don't think it's taboo anymore, but everyone has their own opinion.
Well, we're living in an age now where self-care, just the term itself is really, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You see people, I'm going to take a mental health day, they'll say, or I'm going to take the day. We do a lot more for ourselves than people did 20 years ago. You don't hear about people getting a massage as often. Well, you didn't 20 years ago, you didn't hear people saying, I need a massage, I need to relax, I'm going to a spa. The spa business has skyrocketed in the past 20 years because people are practicing self-care. They're realizing that they need something that traditional activities aren't giving them. Yoga and those kinds of, and the meditation courses and things. You see those in the gym now. They're having meditation courses in elementary school. My children do yoga in gym class.
Nice.
I even think that was the standard for like schools abroad as well. Like I think America is just really catching on to it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it's the quest for mental health is starting to become part of our culture where it wasn't before. And also the stigma behind taking antidepressants is starting to lift as well. That again, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you would say to somebody, are you taking Prozac? Oh my God, no, I don't need that. I don't need that. All I need is a hoagie and a soda and some Doritos. I'll be fine. No, but
Bible.
Yeah, but now people are coming around to, okay, so a diabetic needs insulin. You know what I mean? A person with clogged arteries needs a statin, and the depressed person just might need a serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
All right, so I think we'll jump onto our next point. Thank you for that. And I'll direct this one to you as well, Dr. Cynthia. Can you give us a little insight on how mental illnesses are caused? And basically, is it possible that they can be passed genetically?
Some, yes. The more we learn about mental illness, the less willing we are to separate the body from the mind. We're learning now, if you were an undergraduate now, you could get a degree in biopsychology because the mind and the body are so connected, and we can't separate them the way we used to. So yeah, there are certain disabilities, there are certain disorders in the APA's publication, Diagnostic Statistical Manual. I think we're at number 5 now. They run in families. It is believed that ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, runs in families. Of course, we know Down syndrome does. We know, there are quite a few. We're also looking at bipolar disorder. because we're seeing patterns of behavior there. And of course, dyslexia. And sadly, dyslexia is passed on by the father. I'm sorry, guys.
No.
It is what it is.
Excuse to denounce them because it's like I don't want to be accountable for.
Yeah, but that's why I advise parents all the time. If you think your child has ADHD, you don't want to take the opinion of just the teacher. You don't want to just take the opinion of the principal who probably just doesn't have good classroom management or whoever. You really do want to see a neurologist, because it's evident. The biology is evident. When you do a CAT scan on a person with ADHD, their brain looks different. The movement of the neurons looks completely different. So you can't throw that out and say that's all right. The teacher says she's ADD. I'm going to addict my child to amphetamines. So that runs in families. Schizophrenia, sadly, runs in families. That's a genetic. It's they're very close now to identifying the exact gene pattern. It's amazing. So I love the fact that we are sequencing the genome. We are at a point now where if you have that in your genes, we can take care of it from birth on. That we don't have to. You don't have to wait until the person has an episode to discover that they have this problem.
That's nice. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really nice.
It's a good time to be talking about mental health. We know so much more than we used to.
So then I guess the advancement in technology too, that piece has made us kind of more willing to accept it versus like, back in the day, even like with Salem witch trials and things like that, where, it would be like, oh, it must be like a demon, it must be a curse or something like that. So knowledge is really just, I guess, the more information we have, the more powerful we can be and the more, I guess, readily we can address these items.
I think we need to also kind of jettison our tendency to look at everything in terms of black and white. That, if you can be a good, strong, Catholic and still see your therapist. There's no conflict there. You can be a good Christian and still see a therapist or take an antidepressant every day, or that the Bible doesn't even say, the Quran doesn't, you know what I mean? You don't have to choose. That you can be mentally healthy and be a person who practices organized religion or be spiritual.
Yeah.
In fact, I think mentally healthy might just make you more spiritual.
Thanks.
Yeah, speaking to Chunky's point earlier, you wouldn't question someone who like goes to a gym and has a personal trainer, right? So to me, it's kind of no different from a person seeing a psychologist, right? It's there's no different from that. I think that's normally the easiest way I go about whenever someone does come up about therapy or whatever. That's normally how I explain it to them, especially if there are someone who's like really crazy about their personal fitness and they're working out all the time. I'm like, you're physically working out your body, but what about your mind? What are you doing there, right? But yeah, I think that's kind of like the easiest analogy for me to provide people is it's no different from going to a personal trainer, right?
And that's funny because if somebody's going to a personal trainer, I'd probably give them a hard time. No, I'm just joking.
No, you would.
Oh, you haven't been lifting. You've been taking time off, huh?
I guess
I'm just free. I'm frugal, so just making those payments is like.
But it's just like if you know how to do it, then you won't hire someone. But then again, it's accountability. So to D-Wax point about science, I look at the other spectrum when it comes down to societal acceptance. When you look at what we're putting out in movies and TVs and media, it's just that being that it's out there more, people are more aware about it and more willing to accept that, hey, this is more normal than we thought it was. There's not a true stigma attached to it. It's just that we didn't know what it was. So with human beings, if you don't know what it is, you're going to run from it or you're going to judge it. Yeah. But once you understand, like, oh, well, there's people in my family now, it personally affects me. There's people that I know, and it's more of a personal affection. And it's like, well, maybe I should look into it. Maybe I shouldn't be so harsh towards it. I think that's with anything, but especially with mental health, it's just like, well, all right, you're taking antidepressants. That's necessary. So just to Dr. Cynthia's point, like if I have a medical issue that I need to take insulin for, so if I have diabetes, I need insulin. I'm not like, oh, this guy has insulin, I'm not going to talk to you, you're weird. It's more so like, oh, well, you're taking care of yourself for you to function what we quote unquote deem normal. But that normality, once again, is subjective. So there's nothing wrong with having a moment, just like there's something wrong with someone having a physical injury. You're going to have a mental injury, and that's okay to take time to recover. And I think we're becoming more accepting of that, but we still have a little further to go.
A long way to go.
Yeah. So I guess to that point, when we speak on, overall, and Francis, I'll let you jump in after this. When we speak on, trainers and mental health, I guess that also is a direct correlation or, a direct, I guess you have to think about America's healthcare system as a whole and how many people are just not able to get help because they simply cannot afford to get help. I guess in the same vein that someone may not be able to afford a trainer or afford a gym membership. So what options do they have in that sense? So
yeah, about that after Francis.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. Glenn actually took the word out of my mouth. So because what I was thinking about, like, I feel like at least in the Black community, the therapy is more taboo. And then I was processing that. I was like, well, is it really tied to like us as a Black community, usually growing up in a more lower class families, and we don't have access to health insurance and stuff like that? Does that attribute it to us not actually having this view on and perspective on therapy as well? Like, how does that have some attribute to that as well? Because I was kind of processing that. I was wondering if that has some tie to it as well.
That question brings to mind a movie that came out in the 90s. I think it was called Soul Food, I think. And they had an uncle named Uncle Pete that would be in the room, and they would just put the tray of food there, and he would just get it and shut the door. And everybody, and we would laugh at that because every family I know has an uncle or an aunt like that. That's just, he's just, don't pay no attention to him. You know what I mean? Right. And that's the way we dealt with it. And we don't have to do that anymore. And it's actually, it's excellent. And to your point, Francis, there are several apps now that are available for minorities, people of color, that primarily provide mental health help. If you don't mind, I'll share.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Liberate. It's on. I have an iPhone, but I'm sure it's on the Android phones as well. It's called Liberate, and it's a Black meditation app.
Wow.
For Black folks people of color who need to meditate, and just prompts. It's not bad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never heard about it. Yeah.
Now this one I recommend to a lot of people because it's really nice. It's called Ayana. It's AYANA. It's been on my phone, now over a year. I really like it. It helps. It provides a resource for you to find a therapist, find a minority, and it's diverse. It's beautifully diverse. So let's say you're Puerto Rican, your English is not that great. You want a Spanish-speaking male therapist. You can type all of that in and get the exact, your exact demographic if that's what you want. So it caters to, because otherwise you get the same stereotypical therapist with the beard and the glasses and the pipe.
Those are the best though. I'm gonna learn a lot.
This is major key though, because personally I've been trying to get into more therapy, and I feel like it's hard for me to find people that fall into the categories that I'm looking for. And with an app like this, I feel like I can search for that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a couple more if you want.
I guess we have an actual section dedicated to that piece.
Okay.
We'll circle back. Yeah, we don't want to jump too far ahead.
Okay,
but in the staying well, we'll definitely jump in there. But thank you. That's more tokens as usual. So if you're just tuning in now, open a spa business. They're in demand. I think you said industrial psychology was also another key.
Yes, organizational psych. That's where the money
You
is.
say where the money's at.
Yeah, exactly.
If you just wanted to make money,
Yeah.
I chose not to.
Choose to actually help people.
So I'm going to give Dr. Cynthia a break on this one real quick. I'm going to direct this one to our fellas here. Have you or do you know someone that experienced or suffered a mental health crisis? And, how did it make you feel? And I'll start off with Dre on this one. You've been a little silent, so I want to get you out of there. Dre, you have any personal take on this?
I had someone really, really close to me who suffered a quite big challenge, crisis, where as a result, they actually needed to be placed in a facility for a short amount of time. And I would say probably how I felt about it. I felt horrible, right? I felt horrible that that person, I kind of first internalized it like, oh, why didn't that person reach out to me? Or, so I felt really bad that that person was feeling that way. And I had no clue that they were feeling that way. And that they didn't reach out to me, or that I didn't reach out to, that whole like thing of thinking like, I should have texted that person, or I should have called them, or that there was always those things, but it was really just the most important thing was just making sure that that person felt loved, and made sure that that person felt that they were kind of that it was okay that they were going through this, and that they were really actually strong by reaching out for support and kind of going through this thing. And so that was a really difficult time. And I think at first, just selfishly, it was like me thinking about like, why didn't this person reach out to me, or why didn't I see what it was? So yeah, that was a really difficult thing, but that person is now doing really well. But yeah, that was, I had never gone through something like that before. I heard about these things, or I saw documentaries or TV shows about it, right? But to kind of see someone kind of firsthand kind of, feel like in a really low place, to where they kind of felt like that they were, they didn't want to be here anymore, it was a really difficult thing to kind of imagine, because obviously I've never felt that, right? So to kind of imagine someone feeling that, and then being young, right? And you're thinking in your head like, oh, you're so young, like you still have so much to like figure out, like no one's figured it out, right? But had to kind of put the ego aside, right? And really just kind of focus to make sure that that person felt supported and loved, and but yeah, that's the experience that I went through, which is really rough.
I'll go to D Black on this one.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, I guess so. I guess I got permission to kind of tell the story, but so for me, it was dealing with like a family member who was involved in like a car accident, and then it was like he had to get rushed to the hospital, and then they had to like remove like a piece of his brain, and it kind of, I mean, it definitely changes his personality, and then to kind of see like all the adversity that that he kind of dealt with, from outside communities, and because even when, and I think that the craziest part about that is that even when there were people that say like, oh, it doesn't, like they don't think it's weird or anything about it, you still act a certain way, like you still give off a persona that you feel somewhat uncomfortable, and and it was just kind of challenging for him because of like all the things that he had to deal with. And honestly, like, because he was like probably one of the best like athletes, in our family growing up. And like, I mean, he was super suave, he was getting all the ladies. And I was like, man, this guy's the ish, and then to kind of see all that kind of change for him, and kind of see how people treated him, especially even in our community too, because it was like, I mean, people would pray for him and wish the best for him, but it wasn't like, I guess it wasn't kind of like the support that you really needed, like the support he felt that, or I presume that he needed. Ultimately, he was able to kind of overcome it, and he's a musician now. He's he's a rapper. And, I mean, he's super talented and doing all these great things. But it was just kind of like first really real exposure for me when it comes to dealing with like mental health challenges, like personally. but yeah, I don't know. It just really kind of woke me up. I was like, wow, we have like this big gap in our African community about, when it comes to mental health. Because I mean, everybody prayed for him. We wished well for him to come out of, when he was in the hospital, I should say, to come out of it. But then it was like after it was like people were just like, oh, don't really say anything to him. And that's why that's why it was interesting when you made that reference to the movie, because I was like, I kind of felt terrible for a second, because I remember those movies and I was like, damn, I laughed at those too. Like, it's not really funny now that I think about it. It's not funny at all, because it's like, it's not really helping him. Everybody just, it's like, oh, that's the person with challenges, and we're just supposed to be all cool with it. I'm not cool with it, but we're all supposed to be like cool with it being comical when it's not funny at all. So, I mean, there's still people too, and then we should try to support them the best we can,
So I guess, how much of your experiences, like what part of it was understanding that, okay, if you were dealing with a family member or partner or a sibling, because my personal experience comes from my sibling, and me thinking that, oh, that's my bigger sister. I know everything that happens with my big sister. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of just like knowing, well, that's not the case, because it was like, I was pretty much shocked to find out that she was seeking therapy, for certain experiences that, she underwent through childhood. So it was just like coming to grips that despite being family or a partner or a loved one, you potentially can't solve everyone's problems. And I think that was probably like the biggest eye opener with that. And that's how it made me feel, to come to the realization that it's completely normal to understand that maybe your friends can't solve your issues, or maybe your partner can't solve your problem. And at that sense, you may have to seek help. And that was probably like one of the most reflective moments for me.
I think they're a start. So to be able to speak to someone that's close to you to begin with is a huge relief. From everybody on the panel, I have a different experience. I was the odd man out in the family. I was the dude that went to therapy for a while, and it's something that you go through. And with my brother, like, he has his issues, and this may sound mean. I'm like, not suck it up, but you know the path to go. And I can tell you that path, but you have to make that choice. You can't sit here and say one day I'm fine, then the next day I have an issue. It's just that you have an issue that needs to be addressed. Whether you go into a psych ward, whether you're heavy into therapy, it's necessary to build that to become better. So when you look 5-10 years down the line, that has to start today. Don't care about the stigma that's attached to it, because people's opinions don't mean much, if anything, when it comes down to your actual health and your well-being overall. So if you're able to talk to someone that's close to you. And I would say, like, me and D Black in college, I was able to talk to him about certain issues. Was he going to resolve everything? No. But at least I had someone that will listen to me. And even now, having someone that listens to you makes a huge difference. And that person may say to you, like, hey, go see a psychologist. Hey, read this book. Hey, do this, or take time out to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
And that begins walk, run. You know, Francis?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think your audio. No, I was gonna say, like, no, to your point about, so my experience, actually, one of my really close friends, and I didn't realize they were actually dealing with depression, and that he was dealing with some stuff, and for me, and he wrote a blog about it like months and like I think about a year later, and I was reading it, and I felt I felt sad, because I felt like I wasn't there for him during that time, that phase he was going through. And it made me actually question myself as, what kind of friend am I? Am I a good friend? And it was really tough, because this is considered one of my really close friends, and I didn't see it, that he was going through that, at that moment. So that was really tough. And it's really interesting too, like, just even in like relationships, and, because learning that, people's outward expression is tied back to their upbringing, like something that they dealt with, like when they were like one, even babies, like how it manifests itself, the older you get. It's really like some of the stuff that I've kind of learned the older I've gotten. And it's really interesting to kind of get exposed to that, because those are, one, I never learned how to deal with that personally as a man. And obviously, for me to be there for somebody else, it's tough, because I never learned how to manage that. So So it's really, those were kind of like the things that I was processing when I was put in those situations. So it's really, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation right now.
If one thing I could chime in, I just think that it's like, so just kind of the example I kind of gave with with my cousin, not my cousin here, but with a different cousin, but the lack of knowledge I feel like it really affects how we approach these situations. That's why it's really important that we all kind of get educated. But even with that being said, I think it's kind of similar to maybe other conversations we had, just because there is a lack of knowledge, give people some grace as they kind of work through it. Because prime example, like Fran just said, you want to be supportive. You obviously want the best for people. And, sometimes people don't want to feel like they're victims. They just want you to support them as they kind of move forward in whatever endeavors they're going towards. And then in the process of kind of trying to support them, we end up making them feel bad because we always remind them like, oh, sorry. Oh, like feel better. Oh, like if they're able to kind of, get help and just put them in the right direction, but keep them encouraged with positive words, not necessarily those overly sympathetic, overly empathetic words.
Yeah.
Or diminishing.
Or diminishing words, yes.
Yeah. The other thing I think also the one thing that I've learned, and I know that I think there's probably a question about this later, but I think also people need to be ready, right, to go to therapy, right? So sometimes just because you suggest therapy to someone and obviously it's had a massive impact on you, it may not be the time for that person to go, right? It just may not be their time to go. And
so you're telling me I
it's
can't
one of
throw
those,
them in the car and just like drag them there?
No, it's illegal, and I'm sure Dr. Cynthia would highly advise against doing that.
Don't do it, Chunky.
For y'all good.
You need this.
I'm trying to help you. Bro code.
The bro code.
Yeah. So there is that. Yeah. So there is that balance of sometimes even if let's just say if you had a crystal ball and you knew if this person did this, it would work out for them. That still may not be enough. It doesn't really matter that the feature, right? Or that may work for them. So sometimes there is that thing, and it's difficult when it's like personal, when it's like interpersonal relationships where it's your family member or someone you really care about, because obviously you want them to be in a better position, but you can't kind of want that more for them than they want it for themselves. So it is like a really tough situation to be in when you're in that spot.
All right, but then my question is to that. I just think that it's very difficult to balance. Like you want to be sympathetic and empathetic and be supportive, but at what point does it become where it's like kind of not your responsibility? I'm not saying
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We should take advantage of Dr. Cynthia. So
Dr. Cynthia, at what point do you have to pass the torch and be like, okay, I've done the best that I can. I mean, obviously, maybe the person's naive to the nature of their affliction, but at what point is it like, okay, I've really tried to motivate you, I've really tried to help you get help, and you just don't want to do it, so you're on your own?
I've gotten into the habit with some people in their situations of asking them point blank, what do you need? What do you need? And if they don't know the answer to that, ask them to, think about it, tell me what you need, and then tell me. Because you're forcing them to self-evaluate. You can't give a person what they need unless you know what it is. They might need therapy. They might just need somebody to sit and listen for a few hours. They might need a ride to the hospital. They might, what do you need? Instead, because as I don't know if this is a Black thing, it probably isn't, but we tend to, like, as soon as we know that somebody is hurting, here's my advice to you. Here's what you need to do. Here, let me give you a hug. Come on to my church.
Nah, I wouldn't say it's a Black thing. I ran into some people that were of different races that were like welcoming. So I would say like for us,
we just throw it at them. We just throw it at them.
We get overbearing.
Yeah, you gotta taste
an
my
overall
potato
outcome
salad.
that
You gotta, it's very.
Do you
it's
want this help or not?
Yeah, one thing that someone recently told me, and I feel like I need to try to start doing a better job of implementing this when someone comes to me, is like you're asking them, I guess this is really pretty much what you said, Dr. Cynthia, is, are you asking for me just to like, do you want me to listen? Right? You're coming to me with this problem. Do you just want me to listen, right? And not say anything? Do you want me to listen, but do you also want me to provide suggestions? Or do you want me to listen and actually give you advice on like what I think you should be doing, right? So that's like one of those things where I've been trying to better implement that when I'm
I
talking
have
to
a
people.
fourth one.
Great
Okay,
points.
what's the fourth one?
The fourth one is, are you telling me this because you've already made your decision and you just want me to give you permission?
Exactly.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a real good one.
Exactly.
sounds like you're
Cheat
talking
code. I
to
gotta write that one down.
like spouse
Check this out.
conversation.
Blah, blah. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And what do you think? And at this point of my life, my time's too valuable. You know what I mean? If you've already made up your mind, you don't need my permission, but just say,
That's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, because there's
Approaches-
definitely people that will go to people that they know will corroborate whatever that they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know if I go to this person, they'll get the edge I need to commit this act. So yeah, it's
I get
definitely.
okay.
Mhm.
I think it's just hard though, because ultimately, like I said, you want to be supportive, but then sometimes I think it's just hard to discern whether someone's just, obviously just trying to, because people do use people for emotional support, and like they just want to have somebody feel bad for them and stuff like that. But then to differentiate that from when somebody truly needs help, that's the hard part. Because if you say the wrong thing to somebody,
but it's not really,
God
I
forbid,
think,
they
on
jump off a
you.
cliff or something like that.
But that's
I know
not-
I couldn't live with myself for that though. That's the problem.
So I look at it in a different aspect, right? So if someone comes to me about a problem, I'm going to be blunt. Like, I honestly don't want to hear it. You've been telling me the same thing over and over again, and you haven't made your decision on it. You ask me for advice. No, just in general. So you ask me for advice, I give you advice. If you don't take my advice, as Dr. Cynthia is saying, my time is valuable. So you're talking to me about something. There's nothing much I can do for you. You have to figure it out. When it comes down to empathy, when people lose somebody, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss." Like, you haven't caused that issue. So it's like, my condolences. Is there anything that I can do to hear you out about your situation? And then if you want to talk to me, that's fine. But at a certain point, if someone decides to jump off a bridge and I talked to them the day before and I said, "Hey, I love you, take care. There's something else I can say to you," I wouldn't put that on myself. It's kind of hard to hold yourself accountable for someone else's actions. And that person on the opposite end knows you're doing your best. And like Dr. Cynthia said, they made up their mind. They're just reaching out to do whatever they want to do or make someone else feel bad for them. And I'm very protective of my own emotions, because if I keep giving it to you, then that drains a lot out of me. And when it drains a lot out of me, there's something I can do for anybody else. So I'm very conscious of that. Like, okay, this is really hurting me. I'm going to have to take a step back from you because I can't deal with it. So I'm protecting my own mental health in this moment.
That's the
way I look at it.
Yeah, so I have a question, because one of like the really important thing that I heard a couple of years ago is you can't rely on somebody to be your anchor. So my question, I'm directing this question to Dr. Cynthia, like when is it, what is a safe, I guess, what does it look like when you use someone as a safe anchor? Like what does that look like? Because you don't want to fully rely on somebody to be your anchor. So what does that look like to use to have someone to use that in a positive way?
You make me want to ask you to define anchor.
Yeah.
But,
well, like somebody to be your, that's a good question. So like, I'm sorry?
Somebody to be your what?
Right. So anchor, I guess, like somebody to always kind of rely on solely for everything, right?
Emotional support.
So emotional support, all of it. Like so all your burden is really pretty much put on this person, and they pretty much kind of hold you down. And I know sometimes that could be negative too, right? Because you can maybe put too much burden on somebody else and you rely on them too much, and in return you get disappointed. So like, how can you do that in a positive way where like, or is it, or what is your view on that?
Okay, I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
I believe one of the reasons why the universe put us in a world full of people is because it is not possible to have one person in your life that satisfies every need you have. You know, when you say anchor, somebody you can lean on, somebody you can talk to, somebody you can, you know, who's going to give you advice, that's too much pressure to put on someone that perhaps you love, you know, and that their needs, if you know, if you want to admit it, there are a lot of people in your life that serve different purposes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you throw it all on one person, that person might become resentful, number one. Number two, you run the risk of that person giving you bad advice. Number three, that person's not living your life and might not even understand the situation and might give you advice that is contrary to your situation. There's different people who will serve different needs. And once you take that pressure off of the one person, your relationship with that person becomes more flavorful.
Oh, you preaching today. You preaching today.
All the tokens.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. One person can't be an anchor.
All right. So we'll
you
jump
are not
to
a ship.
Nah, definitely. That's a great point. I think when we're in these relationship roles, we tend to think that, you know, we're the problem or the end to everything, and that may not be the case. So I guess I'll get to two more questions on this before we get to the getting help piece. And I think, you know, just so we're more aware or cognizant, I guess from your experience, Dr. Cynthia, what are some signs or some telltale signs that someone may be experiencing like a mental health episode or crisis or an issue?
Well, technically, there is no such thing as a mental health episode.
Okay.
Okay. But if you notice, if this is someone you know well, notice changes in their behavior, changes in perhaps, you know that they're a morning person, they get up really early and they start sleeping really late. The person who is always enjoying a good meal and they stop eating. A person that starts coming to work late. A person that stops bathing. A person that things like that. You start seeing changes in their behavior. It doesn't have to, you don't have to wait until, the stretcher comes with the straitjacket. Little hints. Look for little hints. The person that only drank socially, who is now drinking by themselves every day. No, the change. Note the little changes.
Yeah.
Note the little changes, and then if it's someone that you're intimate with, you pretty much can see differences. Even in speech, the way they talk about themselves or talk about other people. Sometimes you might say, "Where did that come from? That's not you." So the communication, the way a person communicates, changes based on what's going on in their lives. I just want to just cycle back to another point that was made earlier, that just because you're close to somebody doesn't mean that you know them. We're always surprised by somebody attempting suicide or whatever. Oh, how could that happen? That's not her. I tell that to parents all the time about their children. When they go to school, they become someone else. You know that you're not the same person that you are, when you're hanging out with your fellas and then with your significant other, you're a different person. We have a whole lot of drawers in our chest of psychology. We become what we need to be where we are. So, when I'm in my art studio, I'm art. When I'm in my office at William Patterson, I'm a professor. We also, so with somebody close to you and you say, "Oh, I've known them all my life. I went to elementary school with them. I know them so well. How could I?" Nobody knows anybody.
Yeah, that is a fact.
That's good.
I think even from this podcast, we learn about each other every recording, every episode. It's just like little nuggets, and definitely the more you're out there, the more you learn. So I guess I'll jump to this last point on identifying when you need help. And one of the things we wanted to speak on, what are some common misbeliefs or misconceptions about people that suffer from, mental health issues, or about mental health awareness as a whole? And I think, D Black, you had a point on this specifically in them being underreported or potentially trendy to claim. But if we could just speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, you want me to kind of clarify what I was
Sure.
talking about? Okay. Yeah. So basically, I just think it's very interesting because, you know, I feel like initially, like you really didn't hear a lot about these like mental health concerns or people going through like I think even just kind of growing up, one of the biggest ones, like autism, like it's like, you know, honestly, like I never knew what autism was. I grew up not even hearing what autism was. And then it became like something that, you know, like I started hearing a lot more. And so I guess I guess more of my question is just like, can these things be associated with trends? Can people just kind of claim it because of the fact that they think that it's like kind of the cool thing to do? Like for example, prime example, I wear glasses. A lot of people now wear fake glasses just because they think it makes them look studious or make you more attractive. Yeah, people wear fake glasses, like literally glasses without medication, no medication in it.
Yeah, you put on your fancy fit and you got to throw on a pair of glasses to like really look, you know.
No.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
So, I mean, I think so we've reached a point where it's sometimes and this is just on my personal opinion from my personal experience, observation, I just feel like it's kind of become trendy to have certain afflictions. Like, and I think like now I just feel like I hear, so and that's why I guess the question is it more underreported or is it just a situation where people like, you know, oh, this celebrity announced that they had depression. Kevin Love was one of the people that was like really big and he brought it out. And I forgot there was a couple other athletes that kind of started mentioning that they have it. And then it was like people that, you know, even other celebrities that, you know, like they look like ballers, they look like they live in that great life. And then all of a sudden now they're mentioning like, oh, I have depression too. And then other people start, you know, in general society also like, yeah, I deal with it too. I guess
the dynamic on your question is more so on the conception of it. Is it underreported or is it now just a trend to claim? Like with the current increase of these cases, is it now just a trend or was it simply years past they were just underreported?
Yeah, thanks for the reeling.
Yeah, I think I understand. Do like your I guess the way I think about it is I will just assume that person who is talking about it is 100% truthful. It's for me, it's just I would much rather be on the side of like believing the person, whether if they are doing it for like the wrong reasons or if they are just doing it because they do think that maybe they'll get in less trouble as a result of it. I just think it's probably easier to believe people, and I'd rather be foolish in that sense than like say that they don't really have an issue and then something happens to them and then you're like, oh, like I made fun of the person or I didn't believe them or whatever. So I guess that's my stance on it is I normally just try to believe the person like genuinely, like maybe they are going, like sometimes we put these celebrities on these pedestals and they really are just regular, like they're really no different from us. They just have a job that's puts them in spotlight, right? Or they have more money than us, but literally they are the same people as us, right? You know, they use the bathroom the same way as us, right? You know, they have to pay taxes, right? Like it's all the same. They're really just the same. Like they're really. I know. I've seen a celebrity go into a bathroom before, so I think maybe they're faking. I don't know, but I guess that's my whole thing. Is I'm also just trying to remember that they are just people at the end of the day. Like they're not these people that we put on these pedestals. They really are no different from us, right? Like maybe they make more money or maybe they, you know, invented something that puts them in a spotlight, but literally like the blood runs through their veins the same way as ours, right? They're really not different, right?
So I guess one could also say that they're even more susceptible because they're on a platform, right? Like for us, we have a bad day, no one could potentially hear about it. They have a bad day, everyone hears about it.
think about your jobs for a second, right? Now, if you have a bad day at your job, no one says that you're the worst person in the world at your job, right? When I think about athletes, for example, right? Paul George misses a couple free throws. he opens up
Player
Twitter
P.
and he gets to see everyone tell him that he is terrible at his job, right?
That's true.
He is terrible at his job. Now, mind you,
Yeah.
I forgot how many active players are in the NBA. Let's just say there's less than 200, right?
Yeah.
Like less than 200 people. You're in this exclusive club, right? You're the best at your position or whatever. But I couldn't imagine what it would be like I open up my phone and everyone tells me how terrible I was at my job that day, right?
Millions
Like,
of people,
you know what I mean? Like imagine if every time you forgot, you dropped an assignment, right? That literally everyone in the world, a couple thousand people tell you like, you did this one thing, you're terrible at your job. Like, you know, I couldn't imagine what that is like.
So
Yeah.
I put it to you this way, right? So like you said, you're the most elite person at your job.
Mhm.
So what does it matter what people think that can't even come close to what you do? It doesn't make any sense. Like if you
Yeah.
like ate it up all the time, you would never be successful. I forgot I know nothing about basketball. So this would be like way off the trails.
Yeah, we know that. We know you don't know.
I think there was like some instance someone was talking smack about somebody. I don't know if it was Kevin Durant or someone, and they kind of just like, all right, cool, whatever. Like at the end of the day, you're not signing my paycheck. You're not the one that's talking to me every day. You have an opinion that what's the best level of sport that you played? Oh, like some pickup intramural game? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
So
You
In that respect, you're better than us, Chunky, because I don't know if I would be able to just trying to be like realistic. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, me personally, I don't know if I would be able to ignore that. Like, I would like to think that I would have the tools to be equipped to do that, but I don't know. I don't know what that would be like.
So I break it down this way, and it helps me with a lot of different situations. One, are you signing my paycheck? No, shut up. Two, are you consistently around me to actually help and build me up? No, shut the fuck up. And three, it's just that opinions are going to die out after a while. So why am I concerned about what you're saying to me when you have no clue what I'm doing, no clue what I'm going through, or how hard I'm putting in the work? You want to make yourself feel better. You want to validate yourself in front of a crowd of people. Go ahead, knock yourself out. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning, do the same thing, get paid more than you, and be more successful than you. So I can't let that bring me down. And
not everybody has that mindset, though.
I was going to say that.
That's what I was going to say. Like,
it's different for everybody.
Mentally strong for that.
But it's different for me because I've been through a lot of different situations where I had to pretty much seek help. The help that was given to me, I utilized consistently, and the help that was given to me, I try to give back to other people. And that, to me, that's the point. I'm not saying everyone has to be as strong as me, no, because there are people out there way stronger than I am. There are people out there that's going to disagree with what I'm saying now. There are people that are going to listen to our podcast and just truly dislike me. Cool. But I'm going to do this as often as I do it, and I'm going to enjoy it with the friends that I'm doing it with. And thank you for your opinions. Keep sending them. I appreciate the hate and misjudgment, and I use that as fuel to become better as an individual.
Who hurt you, Chunky?
No.
My God.
Everyone hurt me. Chunky, I didn't want to say I do appreciate that perspective, though, because I think at least the top athletes, they do, even any of the athletes, I think they do have to embody that mentality and the way you kind of said that, to be able to like cope with some of the hate and the negativity that gets thrown at them on a daily basis, right? But I think people also manage things differently. So so I hope they have the tools to able to deal with that. But I echo what Dre said.
So I guess when it comes to the misconceptions and misbeliefs about people that suffer from mental health issues, let's speak on some more tangibles then, because then we could just go through the rabbit hole. But let's say the idea, one big misconception is that, particularly within the Black community, is that Black people do not experience depression. Black people do not experience anxiety. Black people just, and this is probably something that has been rooted since slavery, that Black people just do not experience these things. And I think the statistics will show that that is not the case. Like, that's probably one of the big misconceptions out there, is that we are just not susceptible to these things. We're not vulnerable to these things. We're impervious to, pain and anguish and anxiety. And, that's essentially the purpose of this discussion as well.
The logic of that escapes me. Because how can we be descendants of slaves and slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and everything that we've been through and not be susceptible to depression? You know, we're going through all of these, we have been through all these depressing things and continue to be followed around the 7-Eleven. You know what I mean? And continue, this is ongoing. It is amazing. How can we not be depressed? I went to ShopRite a few months ago and I'm checking out and someone just started going through my bags because she just assumed that I had stolen something. You know, this is the life we're living. How can the assumption be that we're not depressed? If anything, we should be the most. We should be the you know, flag bearers for this.
Yeah. Haven't they said that? Haven't like DNA researchers like found that like that they're starting to see that like embedded in some people of color, especially like you know, African American descendants of slaves, like they've seen like trauma like embedded in their DNA. Like I want to say that I saw an article about that. I don't know if
I haven't.
anyone else saw that, but let me.
But I will say this. I've never seen that. I've never seen it in you know, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, probably does. But we as a people need to start teaching the kids that are coming after us how to be happy. We teach them how to fight. We teach them how to, you know, speak up for yourself. We teach them how to spot racism wherever you find it. We teach them, you know, all those you know, those core survival tech. But we don't teach them that being happy is important and it's not unrealistic. I've said that in groups of people and they're like, oh, you out of your mind. These kids, they, you know, no, they do need to be happy. And we don't teach our kids and then we grow up needing counseling because we don't know how to be happy either.
But isn't there, I guess a question I have for you is, it's also teaching people that it's okay to not be happy as well, right? It's not just the happy all the time, right? There is
no.
Yeah.
But,
that's a good point.
I'm more asking because I think that's what sometimes people just associate with like mental health is that like, you know, like I'm going to be happy all the time and whatever. But like, I think that, I think that's another piece of it that I don't know if people really talk about too much.
True.
Good point.
So my question, Dr. Cynthia, is like I look at it like that cognitive dissonance. So I can't relate to it. I can't understand it. So I'll make my judgments. I think one of the books that I read was like Medical Apartheid, where they actively were like working on slave women and like practicing medicine, and the doctor of or the founder of like I'm losing it at this point. He figured out how to do pap smears and like he came out with all these like gadgets and stuff that actually inflicted so much pain on Black women, and he was just like, oh, Black women don't feel pain.
C-sections too.
Yeah. So moving forward with that, it's just that people sit here and believe this one thing that just isn't true. And me about happiness, like I tell my people at work, like I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna play 6 hours of video games, and I'm gonna go to sleep. It's just like I think it's important to find a silver lining in things, and my attitude is always cheerful, is always upbeat, no matter what's going on. And when I'm sad, I'm just like, hey, I don't feel it today, and I'm going to outwardly show it so you know what's going on. Like I feel as though that if I show it to you, understand, then it will make an adjustment for you to me. I don't need to hide it because it doesn't feel good to me. Or let me try to put on this happy face and try to move through. It's like, no, like I'm not feeling it today. I don't want to do this. I actually want to be home. I'll get my work done and I'll work my way through it. But it's just giving you a heads up that I'm this type of person. And I've seen it in people that have worked for me. Like I had one guy just straight up yell in my face out of nowhere, just completely disrespect me in a crowd full of people. And I didn't yell back at him. I was like, you're off. Can you go to my office? We'll sit down and we'll talk. And we did. And he started crying. And it was a lot that he was going through. I was like, hey, I understand. Take the day, get yourself together, come back tomorrow. Make sure you go and talk to someone. I may not be the person you want to talk to. So find someone that you can talk to, express yourself to. So when you come back to work, your mind is here. That's when you're the most effective, is when you're not worried about things at home, and everyone goes through something. So I think when it comes down to people, we try to, I said it before, like preserve our own emotions, but sometimes you kind of have to give it out in order to help people function and understand. Everyone has their own problems. My problems that I go through aren't worse or better than yours, and I will never compare. So speak to me about how you feel. We'll roll through it. And I think when people start actually being empathetic and accepting, we move forward in society.
Now, I think as far as empathy goes, like that's the understanding that I also experience what you experience. So I understand what you're going through. And I know like we're dealing with years of just suffering in silence and not being able to cope or recognize that we're dealing with an issue. So yeah, definitely, great points there as far as helping the empathy train, but sympathy could also be that route as well. Like just being able to say, hey, I may not understand or fully know what you're going through, but I'm here to support you any which way I possibly can.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a question. Glenn, I was just thinking about the statement you said that, because I was thinking like, as a community of people who experience pain at so many different levels, I was like, could it be associated that the reason why we Black people would tend to not show our weaknesses is because we have to be tough and have to be strong. And when we show that, then like, because that's our defensive mechanism, right? So like, does that also be attributed to why it comes across that we can handle a lot, but internally we are dying, right? But because we have to show this strong outward look that we can handle so much more, but we actually are dying inside. Is that like, what do you guys think about that? Like, that statement?
And I think we definitely chimed on that earlier as well, is that Dr. Cynthia even said it, that we were taught, even children being taught to fight, to endure.
Watch, fight, and pray.
Exactly.
Right.
I was like, I'm dead inside when I go to work.
So say maybe you need to get an art kit from Dr. Cynthia and maybe get on your art therapy.
Or find a new career. I mean, be happy.
Or play video games.
Yeah, video games always work.
Yep. No.
So
but I agree. I think have any form of therapy that you can. I mean, I know we're probably getting to that slot.
Yeah, the getting help piece.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into that, and I want to direct the first one to Dr. Cynthia. And in regards to getting help, is it important or better to find a therapist that looks like you? So essentially, same race, gender, or race and gender if possible. Is it important or better to do so?
That depends on your personal preference. Now, here's all right. I've been in and out of therapy all my adult life because in order to qualify as a psychologist, they recommend that you undergo therapy yourself to get your issues together. But anyway, I have never in all my education, I've never had a Black teacher. Every teacher I've ever had has been white. So seeing a white therapist is no big deal to me because that's just part of my orientation. However, if like for my husband, for example, a Black therapist would be a must because he deals with a lot of the pressures of being Black more than I do. So I mean, if your depression or if your issues surround the fact that you're Black, then you need to talk to somebody who understands that. People, I recommend, my pastor all the time asks for referrals. And I usually refer them to somebody who is also Christian and understands the Christian life of a Black person. Because how are you going to, old Aunt Mary, how are you going to help her if you don't understand why, you know what I mean? Her life, So yeah, she might want to start the session off with a prayer or something, so it depends on the person. If you're gay, it might help if you have a counselor who is gay because they understand your life. So it depends on what kind of life you're living that you're comfortable with.
So now, is that a challenge per se in the field of therapy or getting help, that potentially people aren't identifying with those that can associate with their issues? Like,
they're choosing wrong. They're choosing badly because the resources that are available to us are not shared. There are lots of ways to find a therapist. But if you go online and just, find my therapist, you'll get the Psychology Today therapist list. Honestly, I'm telling you, and it's very limited. and people don't know all of the resources that are available, and that many of them are free. So not having the money to pay a therapist shouldn't stop you from seeking help, because there's I mean, from the most banal to really top notch.
And we may talk about this, but the other thing, I guess, a question I have for you is that it also is one of those things where just because you find one therapist who ticks all those boxes and it doesn't work for you, it could just be that that particular person is not a fit for you and you need to find another one in that. Right. So it can't be you can't, let's just say if you are, let's just say, I'll just use Steve Black as an example. If you find a Nigerian man who grew up in the States, right, and that didn't work for you, that can't be you can't not try to find another therapist. If that, I'm not using you as an example personally. I don't know if you've experienced that, but that's the other thing, just for someone listening, is just because I had to go through that. I had to talk to more than one therapist because the first one I found didn't work for me.
I think that's good.
You can't expect one person to satisfy all your needs and meet all your needs. It's not fair to expect that person to be able, you maybe on the first try, you won't find the right person. Keep trying. Get more people in your life.
I think that makes sense.
Wait, D Black, you're muted. I didn't hear you if you said something.
Me?
No, D Black, I think was muted. I don't know if you said something. But
wait, I was like, wait,
laughing.
so are you saying
No,
we
I'm not
get married?
Wait, what?
Then that's fine, one person. No, I'm just joking. My wife will kill me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a little too late for that. But
It's over now. I don't know. I like the therapist with the old sweater, the pipe, and the long beard. It's cool. Look, lay on the couch, have a conversation. But I've been through multiple therapists, and I've had black men, I've had white females, I have white males, and they all gave me a different perspective. I think one of the ones I walked into, the dude was just like, "Oh, how's the weather today?" I was like, "This isn't helpful for me. I'm not here to talk about if it's going to rain or shine. I'm here to talk about how I feel and what I think." And like Dr. Cynthia was saying, like a lot of people offer a lot of different things, and having multiple different therapists, I think, is helpful because it gives you multiple different perspective about people around you and about yourself. They may see something in you that a different therapist may not see because that person really identifies with something else that's in you. And I think that's helpful for human growth, period. When you're able to speak to so many different people, or you find that one therapist that's just like, "Hey, this is awesome," or you may go to group therapy. I don't know. Maybe group therapy may be your thing, and that may be making you feel a lot comfortable to express what you're going through because there's other people in the room that can identify with that, and you may find, a very good friendship out of that, and you may be able to help multiple other different people. But therapy is an amazing thing to go through, and if you ever think or that you may need it, just do it. Like, you're not going to lose anything about yourself, honestly. You're just going to gain more and a better awareness.
I don't think it's that easy though, because I feel like with people who find it difficult, I mean, even for myself, I mean, I've been to therapy, but I'm not gonna say it was easy to go at first. I just feel like,
so why wasn't it easy? I'm not gonna bang on you like that, but it's just like everyone has their own challenges, and this is a choice that you can make, and you only stop yourself from making that choice.
Yeah,
and
but
it's like what stops you from taking that huge step forward?
But just because something's good for you doesn't automatically mean everybody's gonna do it. You can have as much self-awareness as possible, but if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, that it's unbeknownst to you, that like if you grew up in a community where therapy is not an everyday norm, then yeah, it's gonna be awkward, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Cool. And then also, just to speak to that therapist, honestly, I think that first therapist experience is really crucial. And it's really important that you definitely have somebody help you, because especially if you're already reluctant and then you have like a bad therapist experience, I mean, it makes it very difficult to go back, because you're like, this was a bad idea, I didn't want to do this in the first place, so and so try to encourage you to do it. Yeah, now you've done it, and it's like,
so can I put it to you this way? Just like with being athletic, right? If you have one bad game, does that make you a horrible player? If you have one bad teammate, does that make all your teammates bad?
I think
Yes,
the point D is
trash.
trying to say is essentially when you're coming from a background where it's frowned upon, it makes it easy to dismiss it as a whole because it's like, oh, I shouldn't have been doing this anyway. So why did I even bother?
Yeah.
So,
And also,
yeah.
also if it's not so for example, me growing up, like my dad would always ask me like, how are you feeling about stuff, right? Like it was always that it was very normal for me to talk about feelings, right? But I would assume that for D Black, maybe that's just not a normal thing to especially a stranger, right? To open up about an issue with a stranger, right? Something that maybe you feel uncomfortable about talking about in the first place, maybe it is, difficult, right? So I think for some people, especially if it's not something you were raised doing in your household specifically, it just may not be a very natural thing. And for some people, I think it's a lot harder to open up that way.
No doubt. I'm just gonna say keep trying. That's just me. I'm ultra positive, and it's just like I know when me and D Black first talked, I would come to him and talk to him about like different things. He would look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I feel this way. I'm about to cry. He's like, "You're not supposed to cry." I'm like, I'm going to cry because I'm going through a lot, and I feel this way. I don't understand this. I blah 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 blah. He's just like, pull it together, and like it worked in that sense. But I weird on him. But my emotions were like he listened to me more often. And to me, it's just like, even if it fails once, you try and try again. And it's just like, yeah, sometimes it sucks, but anything worth having is worth working hard for. And if your mental health is super important to you, it's going to hurt going through it. But once again, I respect everyone and their opinions and how hard it is to go through it, but keep trying it. Like the juice is worth the squeeze. You may not see it now, but you'll eventually see it later. So good luck and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I do want to say like, so I've tried therapy, I've been to therapy, and I think one of the artists, I guess a situation I had was kind of relating to the therapist, because I felt like, and that's kind of why, ultimately my end goal is to find an African therapist, who has that cultural background as well, that can relate to me a little bit better. Because I felt like, the lady that I was talking to, a white woman, all of that. And I felt in a way, I didn't think she was, judging me, but I felt like a little judged and like ganged up on a little bit because I felt like my information wasn't coming across the way I wanted it to come across. So to your point, I think, definitely keep looking, because that's kind of what I plan to do as well. Just, keep looking at it until I find that right person that matches, that we have the same synergy, so.
All right, so I guess I'll pose the question to Dr. Cynthia. I guess, are there any tips you could provide, I guess, based on what you've been hearing, some people that have undergone therapy and discounted it completely, are there any tips you could extend possibly to say, hey, this is what you can expect or what to do in these situations?
There are lots of different types of therapy. And I would say your number one priority is find out what kind of therapy you're getting. Because, for example, if you choose a psychoanalyst, that means that person's going to dig deep into your childhood, and there might be hypnosis involved, and you're going to be seeing that person for a long time because it takes a while to unpack all of the things that might be affecting you now. If you go to a cognitive behavioral therapist, okay, you're not going to be there forever. You identify the problem, and he or she is going to give you assignments, homework to do to combat the problem. So HMOs love this because it doesn't take as long. But I mean, you gotta look at what kind of therapy is that person offering. Are they going to try to keep me forever and keep taking my money? Are they going to be problem focused, problem solution focused? Are they going to just kind of sit there and stare at me and let me free associate? You know what I mean? And some people like that. They like to be able to just sit there and talk. So, but what your needs are, you got to, again, it goes back to, what do you need? Do you need somebody just to listen to you? And a lot of people, sometimes you just want somebody to listen to you, and that's fine. But identify that. That's what I need. Don't talk, just listen to me. Some people, do you want somebody like a coach? Okay, stop being afraid of heights. Here's what we're going to do. You know what I mean? Like that. So if that's what you need, identify that and find the person that can help you with that. Now there are people who are depressed and just want medicine. And they don't want to talk it over. So again, you gotta identify what is it that you really need.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing that I kind of came across was, my perception of therapy initially was, I go in, they have all this tool they would give me, and identify my problem, here's what you do, and problem solve, bam. And in reality, that's not really how it goes. It takes a long process to really get to identify what the problem is. Then you have to kind of actually work on it on a daily basis, whatever tool or information they give you. And that was one thing that I had to first learn when I kind of got there. I was like, okay, so this is not really a 1 day or 2 day event. It's actually like a process that you have to be. It's a journey, I should say. And it took me a while to really get a grip of that. I was like, okay, what did I really get myself into?
It will help you to know what you need. And when you said journey, it made me think about this. You need to journal. Mm-hmm. You need to find a way to write down, the things that are in your head that you haven't said out loud. You need to be able to look at them and say, oh, that's messed up. Okay, here's, I need help with this, or I need help with that. Painting has helped me with that. Those are my journals, the paintings. You know what I mean? But you got to get it out. And then that way you can look at it and say, okay, I need my therapist to help me with this or help me with that.
Yeah.
Now, I guess to jump to the next, is there another?
I think the hardest part for me, is just that not feeling judged. Because even when, okay, fine. Say you find a therapist who's, your exact specifications that you come up with. But I think at the end of the day, you're still going to feel like somebody's judging you, or like, oh, am I weird? Or was I really the terrible person? Like those type of things. I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be the skepticism of somebody judging you. I mean, or if you see them taking notes. Actually, so the one therapist that I went to, he specifically did not use a notepad because he noticed that people were that he was able to retain people longer and keep them engaged longer because they didn't see him writing stuff down, because then people start making mental association, or he's taking notes about my craziness, So I don't know, just that part I think is really important too, to just keep in mind that their confidentiality stuff that they have to adhere to, and then they're also have to abide by HIPAA as well, because that's still patient confidentiality that they'd have to adhere to as well. So
I guess I'll get to the next question. And Dr. Cynthia, I'll start off with you on this one also. Is it possible that therapy may not be for everyone? And if that's the case, are there effective alternative methods of seeking help or, getting the assistance that you need?
Well, yes. No, there's no one solution for everybody for any problem that you might have. But now there are many different types of therapy that you can get. And I mean, when I say many different types, I mean, you don't have to go walking into the office and sit down and lie down or whatever. You don't have to. Now you can have virtual therapy. You can have group therapy via Zoom. You can there's apps now where you can text message your therapy to your therapist. It couldn't be easier. But if you feel bottled up and you feel that nobody's listening to you, etc., seek one way, the best way for you. But and I'll be honest, text messaging is the best thing that has ever happened to me, because I'm not a real good person to talk to on the phone. I don't. So I love this, just the whole medium of it. It's fantastic. Some people, that's what they need. They need to just text, here's what's going on. Use if it's not for you to go into an office and sit down and talk, look at something else. Look at another avenue. Also, as I said, there's in the self-help movement now, there's so many types of therapy that are appropriate. Meditation, there's a sound art therapy music therapy, there is yoga, there is, I mean, there's so many ways that you can get what you need. You can get your spiritual and emotional needs met. It doesn't have to be the traditional way. That works great. It's been working for over 100 years, but it's not the only game in town.
Dr. Cynthia, is there fighting therapy as well?
Of course. I put people out in headlocks. Chunky.
It wouldn't surprise me.
All right, so I'll pose this question to the panel as well. In this era, do you feel we're too quick to diagnose every hardship a mental health crisis or issue? Do you feel like everything that someone like I may be having a bad day at work and I voice that, someone's going to say, oh, you're having a mental health issue? Do you feel like that's become pretty prevalent today or pretty frequent, like it's a buzzword, mental health? You know, every issue that I'm dealing with, I have a bad day, I broke up with my girlfriend, oh, I'm having a mental health issue. Do you guys have any feelings about that? I'll start off with Chunky.
If you abuse it all you want, in a sense that it may come out to be more beneficial. Like, all right, you went through something that may be a very hard situation or maybe a high level of adversity to you. So take the time out and evaluate it. I don't know how bad it's going to affect you. You may have lost your cat. To me, it's a cat, but to you, it may be something significant to you. So take the time to do it. Can it be misutilized? Yeah, but I think we have to figure that out in society. What's actually like a mental health issue? And I'm not trained in mental health issues, so me personally, I wouldn't throw it out. If my boss tells me like, hey, you know, you had like lettuce today, you really eat lettuce, I think you're having a mental health issue. It's like, okay, can you send me home then? Then I'll just go home and just relax. It's just like, all right, you're trying to see something in me, you're trying to fix something, but you're going about it the wrong way, and that's kind of dangerous at the same time. But it opens the door. Like, we need to learn more. We need to learn how to just assess it on the basic level. And I can't diagnose you with something, so that's completely different. Like, hey, there's something wrong with you, something's off today, would you like to talk about it? No, you want to do it that way? I need to accept that you wanted to do it your way. But then again, I'll consistently check in with you here and there, but not to overburden you. Like every 5 minutes, you're all right? You're all right? How are you feeling? You're all right? Hey, when you need to come and talk to me, talk to me. If not, that's cool. I just hope you're okay. I'm always here. You know, my door's always open. My phone's always on. Shoot me a text if you want to talk, or make sure you reach out to someone close to you if that makes you feel better. So my thing about that, we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And it still takes a lot of calibration.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the panel on that?
I guess I would just say, like, it's not my place to cast that judgment towards other people. You know, I'll leave it to that person to tell me whatever state of mind they are currently at that moment. I know it's easier, you know, for us. I think, you know, what we tend to do really is when we see something on social media, you know, we see somebody, you know, maybe acting a fool or just a out of body experience. You know, we tend to, you know, okay, cast that judgment. Okay, maybe they're going through a mental breakdown or whatever situation they may be going through at that moment. So, and I think we all kind of fall guilty of that. But overall, though, I think, you know, it's not my place to state that, and we should kind of just leave it to the professional or kind of let that individual persons tell us what they are going through.
Okay, good point. So I'll get to the next question then, and this will probably be a little philosophical one. I'll go to Dr. Cynthia on this one first. Now, there's an adage that says adversity builds character. And initially, when I think of mental health, I think of, okay, someone that's not having any issues at all. Could be an improper definition, but essentially, I originally, from my understandings and experiences, I'm mentally well because I have no issues in my life. Now, do you think like the lack of adversity would make us unfit or incapable with dealing with hardships? Like, does adversity truly build character, or is it like the straw that broke, you know, the camel's back, essentially, for some people?
You can't, well, you're saying adversity, so that the adage is adversity builds character. Mm-hmm. That assumes the presence of character to begin with. Mm. Okay. Nice. So for some people, it's not going to have that effect because they're not working from a place of morality or whatever, So if you're a person who seeks to be a better person, adversity might just build strengthen you and make you more resourceful. But not everybody, because not everybody is is equipped with that.
Facts. So I guess to get on that point as well, and the next question would be, I guess from your experiences or everyone's experiences on the panel, I direct this one to them as well. Is there a fascination or a love-hate relationship with struggle within the Black community? Because
yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, jumped on that one.
In fact, again, and it goes back to my whole thing about learning how to be happy. We glorify when you get a bunch of Black folks together and we're talking about, man, that was the longest day of my life, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we talk about stuff like that, things that happened that were horrible, and you crashed your car, and then you had an argument with this person, and then she took your whatever. I mean, and that's it's funny as heck, but that's our conversation. That's the way we interact with each other. And if you go to a comedy club and you listen to a comedian, all of the insults, all of the funniest jokes are the ones where you're talking about, somebody else doing something, or, the whole conflict situation, insulting, that's our communication. I mean, there used to be a show on MTV called Yo Mama.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That was a great show.
That's our culture. That's our culture. And it contributes to the anger and depression, because we're not taught to be as happy as we could be.
True. Because I remember, like, in high school, and I probably went to one of the worst high schools in all of Essex County. But basically, you couldn't identify as Black if you didn't hit certain categories. Like, you weren't from a single parent home, you weren't on welfare, you didn't get food stamps. So it was like, if you didn't tick these boxes, you weren't Black.
Still go through that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yes.
Facts.
We wear our afflictions like badges. Like nobody can, or I guess our life challenges like badges.
It's bragging rights.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Dre.
I was just gonna say the other thing that I think we also should be careful of is the opposite of that, is just because on the outside someone looks like they haven't had any adversities or they've had it like good, quote unquote, sometimes I think those people are often diminished as well. It's like, well, you haven't gone through any, like you haven't had a hard life, or you haven't, so that's the other thing that I think sometimes happens as well. The opposite of that as well is yeah, I had all this struggle, you didn't have this struggle, like you don't know anything about this, like very, can be kind of disparaging. And just because you had a quote unquote good life, you could still have bad things happen to you and, struggle, right?
I know what you're saying. And that's why to this day, when people talk about, we couldn't afford and we couldn't eat this and we had to put cardboard in our shoes and all like that, be grateful for your struggles with money, because when people have enough money, they have problems that money can't fix.
Mm-hmm.
So if you grew up like not having this and not being able to do that, be grateful. That was your only problem, money.
Yeah,
that's real. That's a great point. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I was just thinking, like it's like adversity does kind of either pushes you to be greater so you can get out of that situation, or it could also be opposite and it actually can drown you further down in that situation. So it's really, and now actually one thing I've been saying recently on social media is relating back to the badges. I feel like even working, people who like talk about they don't sleep and working overnight and constantly working, it's like something we do kind of wear as a honorable badge as well. It's like, well, you're not working as hard as I am, stuff like that, which is,
I hate that.
Really interesting, because I think my mentality was like that until I started seeing it. I'm like, okay, then I start checking myself. Okay, like I think I actually process like this a little bit, and I had to look in the mirror a little bit and see like, okay, maybe I need to change my perspective on that, to be honest.
That humans need sleep. That whole concept of not sleeping is ridiculous. It's actually dangerous.
So I put it to you this way. So I look at it always at the opposite end of the spectrum. So like when you look at like adversity, like I never tell someone like, you know, my challenges were harder than yours. I think those people who haven't been through a lot of adversity have a better outlook on life and have a lot to spread, as in like a level of happiness to see through like certain realms. Like wearing your badges through what you've been through, I think it's sometimes helpful to show other people so they can identify with you and you can teach them other things if you utilize it the right way. We have that saying, you walk the walk and talk the talk. I can't speak to certain things if I've never been through it. I can have that sympathy, but that empathy hits different, right? So being said that, it's just that, yeah, you know, I didn't sleep. I went through this, you know, I done blah, 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 blah. In some communities, that's very acceptable because that person has something about them that you can learn lessons from. But that you put that person in a different society, a different community, they're just like off the wall. And it's just like, I don't want to be in here. Like for one story, like I'm always hyped up, I'm always excited. And I took yoga at this random place with my wife. And I came to like, hey, everyone excited to do this? And like the instructor looked at me like, chill. Like we're all calm here. But like in my community of the people that I hang out with, we're always high octane. So everyone has a place in a certain community and it's knowing when to shift and adjust it. And another great thing that someone told me that's very close to me, I have to learn how to turn things off and on in certain situations. And I'm staring at this person right now. So it's very, very good advice coming from very different people. So the badges of honor that you have is a weapon for success and a weapon for hindrance. It really depends on how you learn how to use it and how you're using it against or for someone else. And that's still learning more about yourself more than learning about other people.
For more content or to learn what the next topic will be, please feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. And we'd like to give an esteemed thank you to our guest, Dr. Cynthia Northington-Purdy, for sitting with us on part one. And I guess just as a reminder for this episode, how can people reach out to you as well or follow your podcast and take a look at your art?
My podcast is on Apple Podcasts, and it's Your Teaching Career with C. Northington-Purdy. I'm on it's Your Teaching Career with C. Northington-Purdy on pretty much I'm everywhere on that one. And there will be new episodes coming up as the school year begins. My Instagram is at Northington-Purdy. C. Northington P. I have two of them. C. Northington P, and I also have Northington-Purdy. One of them is for the podcast and the other one is for my artwork. You can also, if you type in, you go to Etsy.com and type in Northington-Purdy, my artwork is there. So
yeah, we'll make sure to drop the links in the show notes. So anyone listening, make sure to check out the show notes. We'll provide direct direct links.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. So stay tuned for the outro coming right up after this to learn additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And we'll be sure to see you all again next week. Once again, Dr. Cynthia, thank you very much for sitting with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was so fun.
Send an invoice to D Black. Send an invoice to D Black.
Facts.
Approved.
Definitely. And stay tuned for part 2 where we'll talk about staying well with Dr. Cynthia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you guys. Let me know.
And that concludes part 1 of this 2-part discussion on Black mental health awareness. Part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Cynthia will be released as post-season bonus content launching mid-July of 2021. Where Dr. Cynthia will provide her professional insights and tips for staying mentally fit, as well as efforts we can take to stop the stigma within our own communities. As usual, be sure to follow or subscribe to the pod to stay up to date on when our next episode is released. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, or leave a review. You can also follow us at JJC Podcast on Instagram for more news and updates related to the podcast. As always, stay well. See you next time. Peace.